Thank you very much, Dr. Valentino. May I invite you to take a seat because she is our first panelist, and then I will quickly call up our second panelist. Um, uh, she's wearing hot pink. One of the things that I lost out when I became a lawyer was the ability to wear bright colors. Yeah, and red is one of my favorite colors. Then I thought I can't wear it to work anymore. And over the years I've been a lawyer, I have come to that truth. So I wear them on Saturday and Sunday, and then wear more boring colors during the week. Welcome, Joyce, to the panel. Please take your seat. Our third panelist is actually online, and they'll bring her up on screen in a few minutes. Let me also take a seat. Again, I promise that I did not come up with the idea of having ladies only on my panel, but I got... Oh, yes, yes. And when there are men only on the panel, we don't complain. So we will not complain when there are women only also. So welcome, ladies. It's a privilege to host you on this panel, especially given your wealth of experience. Dr. Valentino has already introduced herself. So I'll ask Joyce that you introduce yourself to our audience. We have about 50 people listening to us online also. And so to our online listeners, thank you for being with us through the last 2 days, and I hope you're hearing us and getting us well. Go ahead, Joyce.
Thank you, Rosa. Joyce Gashugi-Waweru. I am the Chief Executive Officer at the Packaging Producer Responsibility Organization. We are Kenya's first producer responsibility organization, helping our members to implement extended producer responsibility for all their packaging materials as mandated by the Sustainable Waste Management Act of 2022. We are a nearly 200 member plus organization that is handling packaging streams that are used in the fast moving consumer goods, among other industries. But beyond that is that we are also very keen on being able to support just transition by including bottom of the pyramid waste collectors into the value chain by ensuring that the resources we collect from our membership, we are able to distribute through the value chain to support the livelihoods of the most essential groups that support waste management in the country.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Joyce. And it was interesting for me when I met PACPRO for the first time to understand what it is that you're doing and the crucial role you're playing in the circular economy. Joining us online on behalf of the Business Coalition representative, or on behalf of the Business Coalition, is Rowena Gilpin. Rowena, good afternoon. I know you're joining us from outside the country. Thank you for your patience and for joining us. May I invite you now to introduce yourself to both our online participants and those in the room.
Sure. Thank you, Rosa. Hello, everyone, and it's great to be here. My name is Rowena Gilpin. I work for Unilever in Africa in sustainability, but I'm here as a spokesperson for the Business Coalition for a Global Plastics Treaty.
Thank you, Rowena. And just starting with you, in terms of the discussion that we are trying to have around waste management, could you tell us maybe from a business coalition perspective, what are the key elements which are essential for fostering innovation and sustainable growth in today's world, and in particular also in the global plastics industry?
Sure, thank you. A strong global plastics treaty would be designed to drive innovation by setting clear guidelines and obligations that encourage businesses to develop new solutions for plastic reduction, recycling, and reuse. By defining problematic plastics and chemicals of concern, the treaty incentivizes companies to redesign products focusing on a more sustainable materials and processes. This shift will stimulate research and development into alternatives to single-use plastics and encourage the creation of new materials that are easier to recycle or that biodegrade more safely. Moreover, the treaty may promote circular economy approaches where materials are kept in use for as long as possible. This shift will open up new business opportunities and markets for companies that invest in sustainable practices. As governments implement supportive policies such as EPR and waste management frameworks, businesses will find it easier to innovate without facing prohibitive costs or regulatory uncertainty. Thank you.
Thank you, Rowan. And as you were speaking, I was thinking about the packaging producer responsibility, Joyce. And as we're going through the information coming in from the panelists, please jot down any question you'd like to ask. Somewhere in the middle of our panel, I will ask them to stand up so that we take a picture together with the PS as we continue with the discussion, just to keep things going. So, Joyce, what role do you think packaging producer responsibility organizations such as yours plays in ensuring that producers meet their waste management responsibilities, and how can that be fostered not as an obligation but as a business opportunity?
Thank you. So ideally, because EPR is really mandated by law, so of course there's a compliance segment, and because of that, as a PRO, our critical and core objective is to ensure that our members are actually taking care of the end of life of their packaging material. I think critical to us is that they are designing for the environment, not just for recycling, because it could either be for a refill, a reuse aspect. And I think for us, we've been able to do that for some of our members. We've seen them shift from some problematic types of plastic polymers to more recyclable ones. And of course, depending on the incentives that are put in the market, then of course we see them then beginning to adopt even better types of material and packaging material for the country. Beyond that is to try and be an intermediary. As a PRO, we are an intermediary between the producers and the waste value chain. A lot of producers, their relationship with the market is purely consumer. So I want to put the product in the market, it's purchased. And so for us is to ensure that we then extend that relationship into the waste value chain, where we ensure that the product is either collected for treatment, but most certainly diverted from the dump sites. Yes.
We had an interesting discussion this morning, and I'd like to know what people in the room think. We wondered who should have the responsibility of bearing the cost of the labeling. Even the PS talked about ensuring traceability so that you can understand whose product was this. So I'd like to know who in the room thinks that it should be. I have two options. Either it is the brand owner, so the person who is be selling to the consumer, or do you think it's the person who produces the packaging? Because you know the person who does the plastic bottle or the box is different from the brand owner who then puts the product inside. Let's see by show of hands, who thinks that the responsibility should be that of the producer? So the producer of the bottle or the box, why should it be their responsibility to label the product? None of you? Okay. Oh, there are a few people. Yeah, 2, 3. Okay. How many think that it should be the brand owner? Oh. Even Honorable Gideon. Yes, are you not taking a stand on this matter? you're the one abstaining vote, right? You're the Speaker of the Assembly. So we had a healthy debate about it, and it was ending up, one reason that was given is who has more money, so that we can put the responsibility on them. And we were joking about whether that should be the right reason. as to why it should be the person who is making more money. But actually, the key thing is that labeling, as we know, because of traceability, is very important and very key, so that we make sure that there's responsibility along the value chain about taking care of waste, and making sure that does not become harmful for our environment. So I'll come back to you on why we settled on the answer. And as I turn to Dr. Valentina, I hope you've enjoyed your stay in Kenya. And I don't know what you've seen as you've been here the last 2 days, based on what you're doing in South Africa. What can you tell the rest of Africa in terms of learning, and in terms of what lessons can be learned from the process that you've already gone through in South Africa?
The process, you mean the EPR? Ooh, how many? Do you have like a couple of days? Okay, first thing first, I think South Africa, when it drafted and then gazetted the EPR, was very bold, brave, and ambitious. I think the EPR regulation in South Africa encompassing maybe everything what you can put in an EPR regulation, from producer, brand owners, importers, either to join a PRO or creating one for the waste stream, if it doesn't exist, to integration of waste pickers, eco-modulated fees, and they also put interesting requirements on life cycle assessment studies to be done by all these producer, brand owners, and importers to comply with 3 minimum requirements that were the oh my goodness, minimization of material in products, making product design so the product will be easy to recycle or reuse, and minimize the toxicity of the resulting waste stream. Lesson can be learned from the South African experience. First, I think yesterday there was this the director on the KPGM participate in the public comments. So I think South Africa went through a couple of iterations. So there was the first iteration in July 2020. Lots of pushback. Then they were gazetted. The EPR was gazetted in November 2020. Another iteration of fights, and also CSIR provides comments for, and eventually they were amended. If you don't contribute, then in that process, then it's there, and you have to comply, whether you like or not, whether it's difficult or not, whether it's impossible or not. That's your chance. So when I came to know yesterday the Kenya EPR regulation will be about to be published for public comment, so everyone that reads and wants to say something, that's your occasion. Don't miss it. Second lesson, it's interesting how EPR can really drive a change for product redesign. I was a judge in August to the SAPRO Recycling Awards, so we came to judge and some products, and you can see how these targets that are put there on the recycled content are getting people that are doing the operation on the ground, are really making them becoming a reality. The overall winner was a bleach bottle made of 100% recycled HDPE, and was the overall winner, hands down, no question. All the judges agree. Or others, you can see how they are fast, they're forward thinking. They're already designing the product. For example, was a thermoform PET pannets to eliminate waste. So there was a tray pannet for like blueberries or strawberries, which had bubbles at the bottom, so to avoid extra padding, so to eliminate some waste. So you can see all these targets are really fostering ingenuity, creativity of intervention. And well, I can carry on. So I think I'll stop here.
Thank you very much. And Rowena, just listening to the discussion here in the room, and as part of the Business Council, what do you think are the challenges multinational businesses, SMEs, so basically the whole value chain? What do you think are the challenges that they are experiencing due to the differences in how plastic management is being done across the region, and how would unifying what we are doing in each of our different countries, how would that help businesses such as those that you represent?
Thanks. So currently, companies must navigate a patchwork of local regulations, which can lead to inefficiencies, increased operational cost, and legal risks. As Valentina was speaking, you can understand that there are, if South Africa sets one set of regulations and Kenya another, and as Unilever we want to sell the same product in both, but it actually has to be a different packaging because of local regulations, you can see how the inefficiencies would creep in, and it might even have to be a different material in different markets. So harmonized global rules will create a level playing field, which would allow businesses to make long-term investment plans with more certainty and less risk. This will also enable companies to implement uniform sustainability practices across regions, which would scale solutions faster and more efficiently. You could then pick, one format, one polymer, which is then recyclable across the globe, not just in Europe, in Germany, for example. And additionally, clear global standards will drive innovation in product design. As Valentina was saying, the rules start to push for redesign and recycling systems and waste management, which would foster a circular economy that benefits both businesses and the environment.
And do you think that that would be the same whichever country you are in? Do you think there's a difference between businesses being done out of maybe Southern Africa or Eastern Africa, or do you think just from the businesses that we have that are regional and global, that really the challenges are the same? And so by having this unified law, it actually then creates that level playing field.
Yes, I do. And that's not only for the businesses, but for the governments that have to, and the local governments that have to deal with the waste management. And it also goes back to clear labeling. Products move across borders all over the place. You may think you're only selling your product locally, but somebody may be taking it across the border to another country, and that's where it gets disposed of, and that country then has to deal with that product. And if it isn't clearly labeled, or if there isn't a unified standard, they don't know what they're dealing with or how to dispose of it.
Joyce, then when we talk about partnership, because Romena has said that really it helps make doing business in whichever country you are in better. What is the role of partnerships, and do you have any examples of successful partnerships that help in terms of expanding this strategic issue?
Certainly, for us, I think we've had three key partnerships that have actually yielded results that can be able to demonstrate that one, there is a business case to be able to argue for design for recycling. Two, around, of course, segregation at waste. And this is segregation at waste at the household level. And then, of course, raising consumer awareness. So the first one was a Let's Be Clear challenge, where we are trying to transition plastic bottles, PET bottles, from colored to clear. And what that does is that automatically it increases the recyclability because, of course, our waste system is largely informal. It means that the people who are recovering the waste collectors, will typically recover the material and go and sell it. So when they have the colored bottles, they usually get a lower price than the clear one. And because of that, so the transition from color to clear does two things. It's good for, of course, the environment in terms of being able to convert it through recycling, but also the waste collectors are able to actually earn more money for it. And that challenge, of course, we had some of our members participating in it. But beyond that is also to look at the additives that are put into plastic packaging and how we can then remove that and reduce, especially the toxic ones, so that then when we are able to convert this material, it can go into a food grade application easily. Secondly was the household segregation at waste. So we have implemented a segregation and I should actually say the partners for that first project were actually the Kenya Private Sector Alliance through their Sustainable Inclusive Business and Kenya Plastic Pact, as well as the Worldwide Fund for Nature. And then at one of the second largest housing estate in sub-Saharan Africa is actually here in Kenya. This is the Nyayo Estate, Nyayo Embakasi Estate. And we were able to deploy a segregation at source project for plastic packaging, where together with the Coca-Cola Beverages Africa, who are also our members, we're able to put in bins, so that then residents are able to take their materials and this plastic packaging is actually able to be evacuated for recycling. The uptake is very good, has been very good, but beyond that it has presented the opportunity that we can be able to scale to other materials, other packaging materials. And so that's where we are at now. And then, of course, lastly is consumer awareness around segregation at source, where together with the Worldwide Fund for Nature and Mombasa County, we implemented segregation at source in Nyali Estate for 800 households, where we give them different two bags. So one was for wet waste, one was for dry waste, and to be able to take either both fractions for recycling. Of course, you do have material that is residual that doesn't go into recycling, and that then was going into the dump site. But the uptake was so good, but it also taught us the need for localizing consumer education to the language that the people understand. A lot of people talk about waste very broadly. There are also cultural issues around how waste is. For some communities, the interaction with waste is actually frowned upon. So by the time you're telling me to touch my waste and segregate it, already we've crossed a line. And so for us, those have been three key partnerships that we have been able to demonstrate the opportunities that exist in the value chain.
A friend of mine told me that she asked her gardener whether he's aware why they have two colors of waste bags being circulated, and they were getting black and they were getting green. And the man, in his own honesty, said the green one is for the leaves because they are green. He was right in a wrong way, because the intention was, yes, to put the organic waste into the green bag. But the issue there was really about consumer education and whether people really understand why they are doing what they are doing. And there's a lot of work, I think, and a big challenge for all of us as stakeholders in the waste management universe to be able to disseminate the information. And we visited, my team and I visited T3 Plastics, and I can see their good CEO right there at the back, Guprit. We visited their factory site in Athi River, and very exciting work that they are doing there. And she explained to us the difference between the clear plastic and the colored plastic when you go through the recycling process and see the quality and the end product, and why it is so important that we're using clear bottles rather than colored bottles. She told me the challenge she's having trying to get brand owners to understand this, because brand owners are also very jealous of the brand that they have built over many years and the recognition that brand gets. So there's always this conflict. And so my last question to my panel members as we wind up is really, what do you see as the biggest challenge to what we are trying to advocate here, which is the waste management process and the harmonization of laws across our region? What do you think will be the biggest challenge that we'll face, and what do you think we can do about it? Romaine, I don't know whether I could give you the privilege of going first.
Thank you. Gosh, the biggest challenge, I think, is agreement, firstly. We've got one round left of INC negotiations, and I think just getting to that harmonization will be a process in itself. And the devil is in the detail. And as Valentina was speaking, you know, we don't have data for a lot of countries or at the level that we need it. And that's where we really need the information. So yeah, agreement and data would be my two biggest challenges. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Romena. Dr. Val, I think.
Data, I can't say enough. Data and know your data, especially know your data gaps. So yeah, I echo Rowena here. And I think another challenge is that there's a lot of policies on dealing with what happened downstreams, because that's the problem that we face in Africa, South Africa, and Kenya. We are importers of products, also importer of waste from somewhere else that does their recycling and then dump to us. So we have a lot of policies addressing what happened downstreams, but the challenge, and this was from a project I did for the UNEP on mainstream sustainable consumption, production, circular economy approaches in Africa. There's very little policies, development and implementation of policies that tackle the upstream part in Africa, because we are importers of products. Something's happening. I think the EPR is something where these challenges can be addressed through targets on product design, because you push on product design like recycled content. So you create a need for something, the secondary raw material that comes from waste, which is a resource and is wealth. And another that's one, and probably green procurement could be another opportunity. So the government should take probably a bold step and foster this upstream solution through creation of the demand for this secondary raw material. If there's no demand, we can do all the recycling, all the collection, all the separation source. It stays there, basically.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Joyce?
So I second what both Rowena and Valentina have said, but to add to that is, of course, regulatory enforcement, a very big challenge. And I think across the region, no matter which regional bloc, economic bloc we're talking about, and then, of course, incentives. So I think all growth is driven by private sector. So we do need incentives around tax breaks, incentives around offtake guarantees. We do need, in our case in Kenya, because of devolution and waste management actually being under our county governments, you find that we do need national government-backed guarantees for them to invest in actual, green growth, green infrastructure areas, and then, of course, public-private partnerships and what that entails, and at different levels. So I would say, if we were to look at trade more broadly, from a green perspective, is how are we incentivizing the movement, say, for instance, I think the PS mentioned glass moving from Rwanda to Tanzania. Even here in Kenya, green glass does move from Kenya to Tanzania. And there are times, even now, when some plastic is moving, but it's still a challenge. And it's a challenge because of protectionism. Everyone is trying to protect their own boundaries, either from waste coming in or from feeling that a valuable material is leaving. So for one reason or the other, but consolidation of policy would definitely help with that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think we've had all the right words in terms of what would be a challenge. When we went for Inc. 3 as an organization, as ALN Kenya, we were going just to listen. But when we listened, we were a bit scared because we were not sure whether we had the right representation and the right thinking and coalition of our own position, not only as a country, but as a region and a continent. And we felt that that is something that needs to be galvanized. And that's how we got more involved in the plastic treaty, just trying to say, even us, we can play a part. It's bad enough to sit in your office and say, these people are not doing the right thing, but you really need to put your hand in. And that's how we extended that as part of our pro bono work. Thank you very much, ladies. You've done a lovely job. Please clap for my panel. We'll ask them to stay on a bit to do some questions, but if I can ask that as we interlude into the questions, we take a photo. We will have affirmative action for the boy child by asking the 3 boys here in front to come and break this female coalition. Yes, Henrik, just come. Sure. Sure. Okay, it's fine. Thank you.
Joyce, Dr. Valentina, if we could still have you on the stage for some questions from the audience.
Thank you.
I think there's a consensus in the room that the panel discussion was very interesting and informative. And so we've gotten quite a number of questions and we had to boil them down just to 2. And so one question for you, Joyce. The question here is on EPR, and the online member asked, if we look at EPR from an electronics perspective, should EPR also support the reuse of activities? Because I think from the experience currently, it only touches on collection and recycling.
So ideally, actually, EPR is supposed to look at all the 4 R's. So it's not only recycling. It just so happens that a lot of what we are all talking about is recycling, but actually reuse, refilling, repair, refurbishing. Yes, all of them. And in the e-waste, it's a little bit more complex because of origination. A lot of e-materials in our markets are actually imported. And so who actually bears the burden of responsibility around all those things? It's an entire discussion. But yes, most certainly it includes reuse.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Dr. Valentina, you have a number of questions here, but I think I'll boil it down to one based off of your presentation on pathways.
Okay.
The question here is on data collection and how to ensure that data collection, as from your experience in South Africa and Zambia, can be replicated in other countries. And so the question is, where and how simply was the data collected from, and how can it be replicated in other jurisdictions?
Okay, so in South Africa, the main data provider, if I can call it that, was Plastic SA, which is the industry association. As a CSIR, we have a very good relationship with them. So we held a number, lost count of how many teams meeting for data collection, data verification, brainstorming, you just name it. That was one source. Other sources were, of course, the State of Waste report. So we used different sources and then try to harmonize, compare when there was discrepancy between sources. We use uncertainty, so we worked it out kind of average value, and then we assign uncertainty. So this value, it's good by blah, 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 and uncertainty on data is then used by the pathways model propagator. So you got results with some level of the degrees of confidence, the classic confidence interval. Other sources also were literature, especially there was a good paper which stemmed from UCT master thesis on collection in informal areas or rural areas. So it was a mix of this. And of course, when we didn't have any data, we relied, as I said, on the upper middle income archetype that was provided by the Pew Charitable Trust. So this archetype data is your parachute. Those plan, I don't want to say plan B, but let's say plan D. So you have to scratch your heads. In Zambia, our Zambia counterpart, I think they struggle because they don't have an industry association. So they trying to get mainly the secondary data, so not primary data collection, and mostly it's scattered. So it's more in urban context. So of course, Lusaka and other major city. When it comes to rural areas, there's basically nothing. I think after a year, we can conclude that what our Zambia counterpart was able to source is what is there on the ground, and that's it. Then now we enter the second phase, which I call data modeling. You got all your possible source of data, and then you make sense of them, and that's is the next step.
Thank you very much. I think a key takeaway, at least for the researchers, but also the non-researchers in the room, is that collaboration with already established organizations is very important.
You can't do by yourself such a study. So that's why I say the two lesson was know your data and data gaps and engage with everyone. They may have something for you.
Great. Thank you very much. Do we have one or two questions from the audience members who are here physically? Okay, well, then I think the online members have represented us sufficiently, and so I'll hand over the mic back to Rosa.
Thank you very much. Let's clap again for the lovely ladies. We promise not to call you back again, but you have done a good job. And thank you to Romena Online for participating.